Hi, everybody. I hope you're here not only because of the rain, and I'll try to keep it fast and brief, although I have a lot to tell you about what's going on in Israel, because as Doreen said, but the next speaker is my husband, and I don't want to have trouble with him, so I have to keep on time. So I want to take you to a short travel in time. Only 6 or 7 years ago, if you would have told me then that one day I will stand here at Berlin's amazing vegan festival and talk about the vegan revolution in Israel, I would have probably laughed at your face. And I think this is the most amazing thing about the story I'm going to share with you, because what happened in Israel was not that there were no vegan people more than 6 or 7 years ago. Of course, there were many vegans and organizations and a lot of people that were, speaking about it, but it was a fringe phenomenon. And in only 6 or 7 years, it became what you can call today almost mainstream in Israel. And in short words, I usually say, I call it becoming from a vegan desert into a vegan heaven. So today, after this short period, Israel is, as Doreen said, the #1 vegan country in the world. We have more than 5% vegans in the population from 18 to and up. And probably there is even higher percentage in the youth ages, under 18. And this is something that no one actually ever predicted to happen. It just did. And I believe what started it was not a decision or someone who, thought about the idea to make Israel the first vegan country, as people say, but a real movement that came from the people themselves. And today, you can see veganism everywhere. I mean, here in Berlin, it's also amazing. And I have to say, I've been here 2 or 3 years ago and was still very popular in Berlin. But also in this period of time since I was here, I can see veganism is much more popular here as well, as I can see it all over the world. I've been speaking in Oslo lately. I'm going to talk in Sweden. I was in Italy, and I see how the growth, how things are moving day to day, year to year. You can see the changes, and I can see it here too, so it makes me very happy. But what happened in Israel was an extremely, it was a booming. It was something that came as a storm, and I want to give you some ideas of why, how it happened, how come today the media doesn't stop talking about veganism, and you can see so many vegan people and so many new vegan restaurants and so many vegan dishes in non-vegan restaurants and a lot of Facebook groups, and this became something so big in such a short time. So why? What happened? Why now? And why Israel? I don't think there is a single answer for that. I believe that we need some time to make some research. There are, at this moment, some sociologists in the world are checking that. I mean, they have a research trying to understand. One of them in Harvard is working on her PhD book. And she's making a comparison between the US, French, and Israel to see what happened with the vegan movement in these 3 different countries. So we need some time to really understand. But if I'm trying to think of the main reasons why, I would have started with the fact that Israel is a country of immigrants. Our culture and also our cuisine are still evolving all the time because people came from so many different countries and with a specific culture and specific way of cooking. So it's a mix. And people are used to trying new things and are not very strict with their diet and very traditional about it. You know what I mean? Because it's still so fluid. And I think generally Israelis they love innovations. They like to try new things. They're very encouraged by it and curious about things. So when you come and suggest someone to try new foods or a different diet, so they're less afraid and more open-minded. At least I would like to think so. And another reason, of course. I will let you ask questions at the end, okay? Because I'm really trying to concentrate. English is not my native language, so help me carry on with my talk, and I would love to hear what you say afterwards. So I think the other reason is that we have a lot of vegan food anyway, because we live in the Mediterranean, and now the Israeli summer doesn't look like that. I know you had a heat wave here too, but for us, rain in August is never happening. So we have a lot of vegetables and olive oil, and a lot of our foods are naturally vegan. I mean, think about the Israeli national foods are hummus and falafel. These are vegan naturally, so we have vegan food everywhere. So that means that as a vegan, even if you drive to the furthest village in Israel, you will always have something to eat, and this is something that makes your life much easier when you live in Israel. Excuse me, this is really disturbing.
Sorry,
this is really disturbing.
Question, the FAQ is afterwards. Please respect this, yeah? Please. Afterwards.
Okay. So another important reason of why Israel became vegan, or one of the leading vegan countries in the world, is because we're such a tiny country. I mean, we're talking about 8 million people in the population, and that means that we are like a small city in some other countries. 8 million people, so information moves really fast. You can see it with every new trend that starts in Israel, and with veganism it was very, very clear that together with social media that made the information much more accessible to people, and we moved so fast that it was like booming like fire. And I think maybe another thing that really helped veganism to succeed so much in Israel was the fact that a lot of people are aware of the idea of eating kosher. I don't know how many of you know the kosher way of eating, but when you eat kosher food, that means that you already separate dairy from meat, and you think about what you eat, and you have to check the labels, and you have the idea of food that is marked as parv, which means that it doesn't contain non-dairy or meat products. And that makes you also, first of all, it makes it easier for people to check their foods and to check the ingredients, but also the idea of thinking before you eat. Even not a religious person, I never ate like kosher food before, okay, even before I was vegan, but the idea of checking the ingredients, of separating foods, of avoiding different foods, like you don't eat pigs if you eat kosher, and you don't eat seafood. So you have something in your mindset that helps you grasp the idea of choosing your food and not eating automatically. So I think that's another angle that perhaps also made it easier for people in Israel to become vegan or to relate to this idea easily. So as Doreen said, my name is Ori Shavit, and actually 7 years ago, if you would have told me that I would have any kind of connection to this amazing revolution that happens in Israel these days, it would probably really, I would never believe that. I mean, in that time, I was a food writer, I was a restaurant critic, I was eating everything, or perhaps I should say everyone that stayed enough time on my plate. And it would have never occurred to me, even in my worst dreams, that one day I will become a vegan. But Then in every good story, unexpectedly, came in the guy. And that guy, we went on a date, and I was discovering that he was a vegan perhaps 3 or 4 seconds after we sat down. It happens really fast. Vegans are never shy about talking about their veganism. And I was thinking to myself, as I told you, I was a food writer, restaurant critic. I was eating everything. Food was my whole life, a passion, my profession, of course. I looked at it as an adventure, as something that you should never say no to food. You should always try everything. And sitting with this guy, he was nice, but it was really clear to me that it will never work. So I said, okay. But as long as I'm already here, maybe I will ask him some questions, because back then, as I told you, the media never wrote about veganism. So also me, as a food writer, I never dealt with this subject. I've never researched it, and it was, okay, I knew that they don't eat this and that, but I never knew why and what's the agenda. So I said, okay, I'm sitting with this vegan. Maybe I'll ask him why and what the agenda. And then he started answering. And that was the problem. I never predicted that I will get these answers. And he made me start thinking and watching some videos. And actually, I was shocked. I was discovering things that, as a food writer, I was so embarrassed to understand that I thought I knew so much about my food, and actually, I didn't know so much. And it was really shocking for me. I remember it very well. And the first thought was like, okay, I heard about the cruelty and everything that happens in this industry. And, I knew about meat. Of course, we all know we eat dead animals when we do that. But I didn't know anything about what really happens in the dairy industry or in the egg industry. And it was very, very, very disturbing. So I thought to myself, okay, I don't want to pay for that anymore. I don't want to support this industry anymore. But what do? I'm a food writer. Nobody wrote a single word about veganism. There were no restaurants or anything, at least you can write for the #1 gastronomic magazine in Israel. It's not like I'm going to write about this, I don't know, burger joint that we had, like one in all of Israel that served a vegan hamburger. So I had to start a new journey and to start all over again, finding my way, because I just immediately understood that I cannot continue doing what I'm doing. And for me, it was not just changing my diet and deciding, you can become a vegan, but then you go to work and you continue with your regular life. For me, my work was food, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I had to quit my job and to change everything, to feel that my whole identity had to be changed. And that was really, really, really frightening. So every time people hear about my story, I'm saying, if I could have done it, then anyone else can. Because for me, it was like not just changing my diet, it was changing my whole life. But I insisted that if I have to change my whole life, I don't want to become a different person. I don't want to become one of those hippie, skinny, miserable, not friendly weirdos that eat lettuce and sprouts in the dark. That's not me. I really loved going out, eating in restaurants, and I was a foodie. I wanted to keep enjoying life. I wanted to stay the same person. And I insisted I will show that this is possible. I didn't know if it was possible. I was terrified, totally, but I decided just to prove that I will do everything to prove it. So I opened up my food blog. I called it vegansontop.com, but in Hebrew the name really means vegan girls have more fun. I didn't know if they do, but I decided that they are having more fun, and I opened up this blog and I started to document my own private story, journey to Veganland. And I went to my chef friends because I knew so many of the chefs in Israel. No one had ever suggested any vegan dish at that time in their restaurants. Of course, not in the, in the high-end restaurants in Israel, in Tel Aviv. But I went to them and I said, hey, you know what? I want to continue coming to your restaurant. And I was like very ashamed at the beginning to say that I became a vegan. I was like, hey, look, I'm a vegan now. Can you make me something to eat, please? And they did. And they started cooking for me. And actually, we started collaborating. And I suggested, why won't you cook such wonderful vegan dishes. Maybe we can do 100% vegan night at your restaurants. And some of them said yes. So we did these events in the best restaurants in Tel Aviv. For one night, they became totally vegan. And you know what was the most amazing thing? That these events were packed. People were waiting in line. People were, on standby list for coming to eat in these amazing restaurants. And I think that was a point when it got people's attention, at least from the culinary aspect, to see that, first of all, you can eat tasty food when it's vegan. It's a possibility. And I think what happened was that these two audiences, for the first time, met each other, because the vegan people that wanted to eat good food, just like I did, never dared, I think, to ask or even thought that someone would try and make the effort to make something special for them more than, eating a salad without a cheese or something like that. And on the other hand, the chefs and the restaurateurs, they didn't think that there were any demand. And suddenly, thanks to these events, they met. And they saw there was such a big crowd that was waiting for something like that to happen, that it boomed. And people started, offering vegan dishes. And they saw that there is a demand, and people talked about it. And the most even important thing was that the media started covering it. And the media titled it as the new culinary trend, because I know journalists, they're just waiting for something new to happen and to call it the new trend. They are looking for something like that. So that what happened and started this thing rolling. Of course, in the same time, also the animal rights movement became, more and more active in Israel. And I think these two parallel, or I don't know if they're parallel, but these two streams of action, one from the culinary angle and the other for the animal rights aspect, made this thing such a big issue in Israel. So everyone is talking about it, and are very, very, very aware. And I want to give you some example before I continue. Is that since then, not only I had to give up my career back then, but I started this new career that I didn't know if it will work and what will happen. So today, not only that I have my website, I also speak about veganism everywhere I can, and I teach people cooking, and I develop recipes. And the most exciting thing that happened to me just lately, only 6 months ago, I published my first cookbook. And this cookbook, I just want to show you the cover. It's in Hebrew. But this cookbook became immediately a bestseller. And not only a bestseller, it is the #1 selling cookbook in Israel. Not vegan cookbook, but cookbook in general. And that to show you thank you. Thank you. And that shows you how deep and broad is the demand, because the demand doesn't come only from vegan people, but also from people who decide to reduce their consumption of animal products, or people who are vegetarians, or people who are even a little bit interested, or they have someone in their family. It doesn't matter. They are all a part of this revolution that pushes this success of vegan lifestyle and veganism in general in Israel. So I'm very proud to have this example that I can talk about. So just to let you know, I said it was booming, and it's been 6-7 years ago. It looks like a lot of time, but in a matter of changes of social, economical, and such deep changes in society, this is a very, very short time to see such a growth. And what you can see today in the vegan culinary in Israel is, for example, almost every national coffee chain in Israel, like Starbucks, for example, that we don't have, but these are the Israeli branches. The Israeli chains, they all have vegan options and vegan menus around the country. Because sometimes people say, okay, so it's Tel Aviv. No, it's everywhere. Because they have hundreds of branches all over the country. So this is not because they like the idea, but because it sells. And if it sells, it's there. Another interesting thing, of course, we have a lot of vegan restaurants and vegan-friendly restaurants, but another interesting example is Domino's Pizza. Until a few months ago, Domino's Pizza, Israel was the only place on earth where this huge American chain of pizza was selling vegan pizzas and vegan snacks in all their branches around Israel since 2014, okay? And this is a huge success. Few months ago, the second country joined, which is Australia, and I heard that it's very successful over there as well, and hopefully it will give them some appetite to continue that in some other places too. Another nice example of how deep is this economical change in Israel is Tnuva. This is their logo. This is the #1 dairy company in Israel. And this company just started to produce vegan yogurts, vegan soft cheese, vegan yogurt drinks. They have soy milk for years, but they started to produce rice milk and almond milks and different types of soy milk. And this is the largest dairy company in Israel. They understand they have to shift. They have to broaden their product line. And hopefully with time, they will see this is even more successful and will reduce also their dairy production. I can tell you that they're losing money with dairy, this for sure. So they had to find out where they can do something else. So this is the result. Another very new and interesting example, Zoglovec is one of the largest meat companies in Israel. They produce mainly sausages, pastrami, stuff like that. And they had a very awful undercover investigation that was published, I think, 2 years ago in Israel that made a lot of noise and made their sales drop. And when that happened, it happened at the same time with the declaration of the World Health Organization about the fact that processed meats are in the same group with asbestos and cigarettes as causing cancer. So together, these two things really made their sales drop extremely. So 2 years passed, almost 2 years passed, and they came out with a new vegan line, 5 different vegan products for the first time. Sausages, hamburger, schnitzels, things that now we have in every supermarket all over the country because they have such a big contribution line. Yeah. And not only that, you can say again, they saw the sales drop, they wanted to change, but that's exactly what we hope will happen when we're trying to push people towards veganism is because we want to save animals and save the planet and all of that, and we want the industry to change because these huge companies are not going to close down in one day, but they can change from within. And these two examples just show how it happens. So it happens. And they decided, and I don't really care if because of the economical reason, because of they wanted to reach more vegan people or whatever, but they are donating 20% of the sales from these products, 20% of the profits of these products to an Israeli company called Supermeat. And this company is one of 8 initiatives in the world that is working on producing lab meat. And they're the only ones that are concentrating in chicken meat. And they are in Israel. We have 3 companies that are, 3 initiatives that are trying to produce lab meat in Israel, and this is one of them. I mean, there are 8 in the world, and 3 of them are in Israel. Pretty crazy. So these Supermeat are the only ones that work on chicken's meat, and this is very important for this company because they are mainly based on chicken and turkey. Okay, so for them, they really speak about it. Their manager talks about it, that he hopes that one day they can switch the animal products for laboratory products, for clean meat, how you can call it. So I think this is pretty amazing that they even support the initiatives that are trying to produce lab meat. So just touching a few of the reasons, I don't know how long do I have? 10 minutes. Okay, I guess that most of you are already vegans and you know what I'm going to talk about, but just to touch a few of the reasons why people in Israel are going vegan. So the first reason, of course, was for me at least, but for many of the people in Israel today, if you go before the vegan revolution, the new vegan revolution, then most of the people, I think, had chosen to go vegan more because of the health issues. And today, it is clearly because of the animal rights issues. And what I've learned about the egg industry and the dairy industry and all that stuff that people don't know, they were still talking about, like I did, like cow gives milk and all that stuff. And I was really embarrassed to discover that until the age of 39, I didn't have any idea of how milk is really being produced. And I want to share with you a short video. It's a little emotional, but it's not harsh images. Few years ago, I was visiting a kibbutz in Israel, in the north, and I was thinking about how I used to go to dairy farms as a food writer and, taste cheese and talk to the farmer. And I even remember once a farmer just squeezed the teat of a cow and gave me, a zip directly from the cow, and I was like, wow! And I never stopped to think about these animals, that they were like transparent to me until that point in my life. And a few years ago, I was visiting a kibbutz as a vegan, and I was entering the dairy farm, and it happened that one of the cows gave birth as we were there. And I asked one of the workers to come in, and if I can be there while it happened. And I want to share with you a short video from that. I don't know even how to describe it. It was one of the most exciting moments of my life to see such a amazing creature comes to life, but it was also the most heartbreaking moment because I knew what is going to happen. I knew that baby calves are never staying with their mothers, and that's the way you produce milk. And actually, not only that he will never see his mother again, but he's going to become someone else's steak. The connection between the dairy industry and the meat industry was a new thing to me before. So that was one of the moments that really made the connection so so clear.
היא תזכה להיות איתו בכלל? היא תזכה להיות איתו בכלל? האמא.
שמה ביחד איתו? ביחד? וכמה זמן הם יהיו שם ביחד? חצי שעה? וזהו? איך תינוק אסור?
חצי שעה לפני שהוא הולך לעולם אחר.
Yeah. So of course, animal rights now is maybe the biggest motivation of people why to go vegan in Israel. But the angle of health, I don't have the time to show you that. But maybe some funny images after. Yeah. People ask me, so how do I see animals for who they really are? And I'm telling them, just watch YouTube. I mean, of course you can visit sanctuary farms and everything, but if someone wants to see how these adorable creatures are, behaving where they're not prisoners and slaves, so there are so many ways you can do it. Anyway, the health issue is, of course, very important, and people deal with it and talk about it. I will just move on briefly and let you look at this guy. I think this is convincing, and we can move forward. Anyway, he's one of the weightlifting champions in Israel. He was number one for his age for many, many years. Today, he's more than 50. Okay, and he is vegan for 30 years, which means this is all rice and beans, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and so I think this is nice. And also about me, I was never doing any kind of sports before I was vegan. My sport was eating, and I was really good at it. But a few years ago, a friend of mine did the most horrible thing, and he said, you know what? I'm willing to try this 22 days challenge of veganism if you're going to try to exercise. Oh no, man, you didn't say that to me now. So I had no choice. And I did it, of course, for the animals. So today, this is my first 10K run in Tel Aviv Marathon. And I keep running 2 or 3 times a week because I got an amazing gift, actually, thanks to his suggestion. He didn't stay vegan, unfortunately, but he did change his mindset about veganism in general, and he's a restaurant owner, so this is important too. Another issue, of course, is the environmental issue. I'm not going to get into that because I guess that many of you already know the details. But if you don't, please look for this UN report, Livestock's Long Shadow. You will learn some very important things about the connection between what you eat and the environment. I didn't have any clue about it before. But I want to tell you 2 other things before I wrap up and give Oren the stage. A lot of people ask me, what is your best tip for someone who wants to try and go vegan? So I say, use this. And when you look at this, maybe you are thinking about this strainer or the lentils, but I'm talking about, of course, the smile. And that's what made everything different for me. Because when I started and I thought about all these weirdos with the lettuce and sprouts that I told you before, I was so terrified. But what helped me was that I decided that I'm going to make it work, and I'm going to enter the kitchen with a smile and look at it as an adventure, as something that I will learn from, and an opportunity to try new recipes, new flavors, new ingredients that I never ever thought to cook with, and actually it made my cooking so much more creative and diverse and interesting, much more than it was before, because people think it will narrow your options, but actually, on the contrary, it made my cuisine much more deep and interesting. I can tell you a secret. A few days ago, I was eating for the first time at the best restaurant in the world called Noma in Copenhagen. It was crazy. They made a vegetable season from June to September. It's not vegan, but you can have the full menu, 20 different courses as vegan. Completely vegan, amazing food that gives an amazing show of how rich and diverse and interesting and amazing and tasty vegan food can be. So I think that if you will enter your kitchen depressed, thinking only of what you can't eat, and very stressed because of that, the chances that the food will be tasty are not that high. So use the smile. This is the first tool, and then everything will be much better. Just one more word about an amazing project that happens in Israel these days called, as I mentioned it before, Challenge 22 Days Challenge. This is the address for the international version, which runs in English all over the world with huge success. In Israel, already tens of thousands of people have done it. It's all online. It's all free of charge on Facebook. And people just join it, and then you have guides like nutritionists and cooks and mothers and all-time vegans and sportsmen and women, and like everyone who could answer anything that you need to know about veganism and help you try vegan diet for 22 days in a row. And it is in a great atmosphere, very supportive. It works amazingly. So I suggest two things. One, for the ones who are not vegans yet, I really think it's a great, I really recommend it, because even if you won't stay vegan afterwards, of course I hope you will, you learn so much about your food and about vegan cooking and about nutrition. It is very helpful. And then for the ones who are already vegans, of course you can recommend it to your friends who are English speakers. And also you can maybe recommend to some organizations or anyone who works in promoting veganism to connect Anonymous for Animal Rights in Israel that runs this project, and they are very helpful in giving all the information to someone who wants to start it in their own countries in their native language and not only in English. So if you want to have it in German language, it's a possibility too. So I have to wrap it up and give the stage to Oren. I really appreciate the opportunity to share the story of veganism in Israel here in Berlin in this amazing festival. And I want to just tell you, to everyone here, that I really see with time what an amazing revolution is happening not only in Israel but all over the world. As I told you before, I see it even here in Berlin, because with every year that passes, things are getting better and things are changing, and we all are and can be part of this amazing change. It can be someone that you influence personally. It can be something that you are trying to move, in a broader way. But any small step you will take, you are all being part of this amazing international global change. And this is a change that is beyond borders, beyond politics, beyond wars between people. This is something that animals should not suffer because of our mistakes. And we should combine our forces and work together as much as we can to make this world a better place for them and, of course, for ourselves. Thank you very much.